Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. It is Friday, January 12th, 2024. I'm your host, George Kerth, joined by the one and only Cody Roadcap. Wild card weekend. Is it going to be wild this weekend, Cody?
It's going to be wild, and honestly, after Black Monday, just thankful to have a job.
We weren't going to get rid of you. It's totally
You probably
fine.
should. Numbers might be a little bit better if the guy with the man bun stops throwing out random facts and talks too much about the Packers.
I mean, you didn't even name your worst quality because saying words is difficult, but it's okay.
Yes, very true. Words are hard.
This is a roast fest, and we are a whole 57 seconds into this episode. So welcome, everybody. As a reminder, we have new episodes every Friday through the Super Bowl, and you better go find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at the Couch GMs to get even more than you get from this episode, and you can get involved, as we might have some playoff things coming on up over in the next few days. As always, you can feel free to hit us with a DM with any kind of football questions, DFS questions, anything like that, and we will do our best to help you out. A little different that we're not in the fantasy regular season or anything like that, but we're still here for you. Cody, a lot to talk about when it comes to head coaches. Why don't we sit back, relax, and chat? I said a lot to talk about because I feel like there's decent turnover every year, but we are now up to 8 head coaching vacancies in the NFL that seem to have been slowly trickling in this year. Wasn't as much of a Black Monday, tearing everything down this year. Couple fired during the season, a couple have been coming in later into the week, but should I name them off here first for the people that don't know, or how do you want to attack this?
Yeah, I mean, we can name them off, and I guess I'm talking, so I guess I can go ahead and do it. Well, reminder, the two that were in season were Chargers and the Raiders. Those happened in season. And then the first domino to fall was Arthur Smith late Sunday night after last week. And then since then, we saw Ron Rivera get let go. We saw, I'm sorry, the Panthers were also in season. Completely forgot about that. That seems like forever ago. They let
That
go of
was the
Frank Reich.
first one, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like
Yeah,
week 10 or something?
something like that. It was him or Josh McDaniels, one of those two, because I know Antonio Pierce had a pretty long stretch as the interim coach, but they were earlier in the season. Then we had the kind of surprising but not surprising with the Tennessee Titans. And then the two big guys with long tenures, at least, Bill Belichick and the Patriots agreed to mutually part ways. And then maybe the biggest shocker of all of the firings let go is Pete Carroll will no longer be head coach. And as of right now is moving to an advisor role, but it doesn't sound like they know exactly what that is at this moment. So a lot of coaches let go or moving on. I said I thought the Seahawks was the biggest surprise. Was that the biggest surprise for you?
It only wasn't to me because it was until I heard that he's moving to an advisory role. It sounded like he is the oldest head coach in the NFL. He was ready to retire. The Seahawks said, "Do you want to move into a lesser role?" Like that's kind of how it sounded. It all went down when I heard it. So with that being said, it's not really the biggest surprise.
So I'm going to take it you didn't watch his press conference then.
Okay, I did not.
Okay, so I didn't. I just saw clips. I didn't watch the whole thing either because I'm not a Seahawks fan. But he did say he still has an interest in coaching. It sounded like he was a little bit surprised by this move. Like one of those, he understands it because he is older. They kind of want to go younger. But then he was also asked before the news broke in one of the weeks leading up to the end of the regular season if he expected to be the coach in 2024, and he said he did. So I think he was a little caught off guard by this whole move as well. And like I said, he even said, I don't know what that advisor role is yet. Like, so it wasn't like this is something they've been talking about. So still very surprising to see Pete Carroll go.
All right, yeah. So I mean, I guess that is my biggest surprise. Then I apparently didn't do all the homework I thought I needed to do. But and I
It's
think the
okay. I
number
got you.
2 then has to be the Titans in my mind because I think the Belichick whispers have been going on now for the last like 6 weeks. The Titans, it seemed kind of on the fence if Vrabel was going to come back or not. I thought that was going to be a situation where they cleaned house with all the coordinators and assistants and kept Vrabel. But I think there might have been some sketchy talks coming out with him and the Patriots talking that it's all rumors in the media that I don't want to speculate in too much, but I'm sure the NFL is going to look at. And it sounds like the Titans and him kind of had a bit of a rift by the end of the season.
Yeah, I think this rift goes all the way back to the AJ Brown trade. I know they've gotten rid of John Robinson, but if you remember the frustration that we saw in the draft room when he came in, or when that trade went down, he was not happy about it. And I think his biggest issue with Tennessee is personnel. And I agree with you. Like, Mike Vrabel getting fired wasn't really surprising because of the Titans' 2 back-to-back losing seasons. Yes, they've done it with a lot of injuries. Like, you get it. But this guy has proven to be one of the top coaches in the league. And normally you hang on to, especially from an organization that kept Jeff Fisher for years and years and years, finishing 8-8. Like, so it was a surprise in there, but there seems to be like some butting heads, and I don't think he ever really got along with the new GM. I know he said, or the GM said, that him and Mike Vrabel got along great. They were in step for step, and this was basically just the owner's decision, wanting to go in a different direction. And I don't get it. Mike Vrabel, I don't know the exact record, but I believe he has a winning record when the Titans were underdogs. Like, that just goes to show you how good of a coach he is, because that team has gone through so much injury over the last couple years. They're a little bit of an aging roster. They're struggling to find a quarterback. Maybe it's Will Levis, but now you're bringing in a new coach, a new system. They may want their guy, and they're going to be starting back over. Like, this seems like a cover up for some bad personnel moves, and they had to let go of somebody. And unfortunately, Mike Vrabel got the short straw.
So Vrabel's career record with the Titans, including regular season and playoffs, was 56-48. They did get to an AFC championship game. They were never really a favorite in the AFC. They had the 1 year where they ended up being the 1 seed and did get upset in the divisional round, but it's the most success the Titans organization's seen in a long time. At least sustained success. And yeah, I feel like it definitely goes deeper, and it definitely goes back to starting with the AJ Brown trade, because there's been a lot of tumbling down the hill, it seems, with that organization since the AJ Brown trade. And they're gonna have to go pick up the pieces now with a new head coach, which maybe we'll do some speculation on a couple of places people might land. Maybe we'll figure out maybe someone we think will land with the Titans as well.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I know Diana Rossini, NFL insider, I believe for ESPN, maybe The Athletic. I can't remember off the top of my head. She said that Harbaugh and Belichick are not on the Titans list. So some of the bigger names are not on the Titans list. So that's something to keep an eye on. But you mentioned AJ Brown, and I had to tell you in our group chat off air to get off Twitter, because these speculations are becoming more and more that if the Eagles lose, they might move on from Nick Sirianni, which seems crazy, and it might just be Reddit and Twitter rumors and all that fun stuff. One, as an Eagles fan, how likely do you think that scenario is? Two, if that meant a reunion with AJ Brown and Mike Vrabel, what are your thoughts on that? And three, is there any other coaches in the playoffs that you think might get canned if it doesn't go this way this weekend?
Okay, first question, how likely do I think it is that Sirianni gets fired if the Eagles lose? I think it's pretty low. I think the scenario I said with the Titans, where it's going to be a sellout of everybody below the head coach, I think that's a great possibility. You might see the Eagles hold on to somebody like their offensive coordinator, who is getting head coaching interviews, trying to get like a comp pick back, for example. But I think like it would be a situation where Sirianni stays, the coordinators and assistants go. I think that's the most likely scenario. If he does get let go, a reunion with Vrabel and the offensive coordinator being Arthur Smith would be my ideal coaching staff. So I would love to see that personally. Is that going to happen? I don't think that would happen. I think there's other spots that Vrabel would be more coveted, and they would court him even harder than him going to Philadelphia. But that would probably be the most appealing spot for a coach to go if that position does open. As to other teams in the playoffs that coaches could be on the hot seat, that Eagles Bucks game does have a microscope on it because there's rumors that the Bucks could let go of their head coach if they lose that game. I think bringing Baker Mayfield to a winning season and a playoff berth warrants another season there, but that could just be me. And then the other one that people seem to be locking in on is Mike McCarthy if he loses the Cowboys' first playoff game against the Packers. You have a little bit more history on McCarthy and your team's involved in that matchup. So what are your thoughts on that one specifically?
Yeah, it seems like that again. If you hadn't made me bet, I know we were talking about this in another group chat. If you set the over and under at 1.5, how many people get fired or let go or traded or whatever, just change coaching jobs? And I said, in all honesty, I think the best chance is that 0 happens. But I'll take the over for fun. And the one name we mentioned was Mike McCarthy. And realistically, I think that would be just Jerry Jones trying to make a big swing for Bill Belichick. They have a relationship. It's been rumored, and just trying to make a big swing. But look at what Mike McCarthy's done. Like, he took back play calling, which everyone thought, Kellen Moore was the next wonder kid, potential head coach. Maybe he should get the job over Mike McCarthy. He goes to the Chargers. I mean, the Chargers don't do great, and I don't think as of this time, he hasn't gotten one single request for a head coaching interview.
I did see one come through for him today. I forget exactly where. So he's still on radars, but it's not the buzz it was 2 years ago.
And Dak's playing the best he's ever played under Mike
Mm-hmm.
McCarthy. We're going to do a show most likely between Pro Bowl or the Pro Bowl week or in between or after that week into the Super Bowl, that week in between leading up to Super Bowl, where we go over our picks for MVP and stuff like that. And I personally think Dak should be the MVP over a guy like Lamar Jackson. I know that might be a hot take. I don't really care. He's playing more efficiently. He led the league in touchdowns. For me, it's between Dak, CMC, and Josh Allen. Those are my top 3. But it seems like Lamar Jackson is going to be the betting favorite to get that one. So Dak's playing his best football ever. They're number 2 seed. They just won the NFC East. Like, moving on from McCarthy makes 0 sense for me, even if they lose to the Packers in a close playoff game. Like, it's the playoffs. Every team is doing. The Packers are real hot right now. We've seen teams get hot at the right time, and that unfortunately takes out some of the teams that were better all season long. So Mike McCarthy, he probably has the highest chance of being let go, but I think that is like the dumbest move. But if the Cowboys are going to make it, I'm glad it's that team doing it.
So, but I'll just play devil's advocate for a second. So you're talking about a franchise that has 3 playoff wins since the 90s. You're talking about a franchise that has had a roster that people say is good enough to make a run every single year, and the farthest they've gotten is the divisional round. And it's the same situation under McCarthy as it was under previous regimes with Dallas. Like, I get it that McCarthy has this team clicking right now, but they have 1 win this season over teams with a winning record. Like, I think it is still 1. It's only the Eagles, I believe. If it's 2 now, I'm sorry if I'm not my stats. So yeah, you're right. They did beat the Lions. So 2 wins over teams with a winning record. They get the benefit of having a home game, but they have been brutal on the road as well. Like, they're still showing cracks, like most teams are in the NFC for sure. But
dude, you're not going to convince me that an 11-win team is not worthy of being okay. Maybe they should be a 9-win team or a 10-win team. Like, they won their division. They're 11 wins. Like, yeah, they've had some bad games. Every team has had bad games. Like, the Eagles lost to the Jets. The Jets are awful. The 49ers, they lost to the Vikings. They're not even in the playoffs. Every team has bad wins. It's the NFL. It's every given Sunday.
But the Cowboys and the Eagles lost to the Cardinals.
Correct. Both and they're going to have the number 2 overall pick. And both those teams are in the playoffs. So any given Sunday, and I'm just saying, like, if you think, when Mike McCarthy came in as the head coach, he was given the stipulation by Jerry Jones, you have to keep Kellen Moore. That went for 2 years, and they never got anywhere. Kellen Moore was allowed to move on, and Mike McCarthy took back over his play calling. His first year, you win the division. You get the best out of Dak Prescott you've ever seen, which they're about to give him another $50 million plus contract extension for you to be like, actually, you know what? Let's get me a new coach in here. Just doesn't make sense. And I get the wanting to go get Bill Belichick, but like, at what point are we
I don't
past
think that's the
the?
right move either, because that's going for the legacy coach, similar to Mike McCarthy. Like Mike McCarthy was the coveted candidate because of the experience, because of the fact he won a Super Bowl before. Belichick would be the exact same situation. Just because of the legacy doesn't necessarily mean they'd be the best coaching fit. And I was just trying to play devil's advocate. I'm with you on I don't think the Cowboys should fire McCarthy. I think that this is the best that they've looked in a long time. And I think this is their best chance to make a run. If they don't make a run, it's frustrating, but you got to think the window's still open, and I wouldn't want to tear it down right away either.
Yeah, and maybe it's just too like I don't see them. I can see them losing on Sunday. I can. Not saying I'm picking the Packers to win. I could see them losing, but I don't see them losing by double digits. Like,
Hmm.
I see a fumble return for a touchdown or a kick return for a touchdown, and then a last second field goal, kind of like some flukiness or a lot of bounces going one way for them to lose. And honestly, I think this is the toughest game this is going to sound crazy, but I think this is the toughest game the Cowboys will play in all the playoffs. I know it's the 7 seed Packers, but I think if they get this one win off their chest, they could go the whole way. Like, I think getting that first win is a tougher matchup than even if they have to go to San Francisco in the championship round.
That's a bold statement. I think this game is tougher than whatever matchup they get next week, for sure. But I think trying to dig up the ghosts going back to San Francisco in the NFC Championship would be their toughest game. But yeah, no, just because of the pressure of all the expectations put on the Cowboys, the fact that they haven't done it in so long, I think that's also where the idea that McCarthy could get fired comes from because of all that. And that's why this game has so much pressure on them. And they're always under a microscope just because of the Dallas Cowboys.
How do you keep Jason Garrett for 8 years and McCarthy for 3?
Amen to that. And that was my argument actually when we were talking about it in our group chat before the show was look how long they kept Clappy.
Yeah, like that's my other thing. Like, and Mike McCarthy's the big name. I know there's still some thoughts that Mike Tomlin, despite getting the Steelers in the playoffs again, they might do a mutually agreed apart ways, try to get some young, fresh, new energy. That makes zero sense to me as well. That's why I said I don't think any coach in the playoffs should get fired. Even like a Todd Bowles, yeah, they were 9-8, but you got Baker Mayfield in his first year to get you to the playoffs. Like,
Yep.
they have a pretty good defense. Like, I think outside of maybe Pittsburgh, right? That is, we got the top teams in each conference making the playoffs.
Oh yeah, no, I was gonna say, what are you talking? Like, I thought you were saying for a second that Pittsburgh had a coaching issue. No, yeah, because Tomlin's out of nowhere. All right, so I think we're both in agreement that none of the playoff teams should fire a coach. So we're looking at the 8 coaching vacancies. Where do you think is the most appealing place for a coach to go right now?
Most appealing,
Yeah.
I would say, if I had to rank them, I'll rank them. I think that'll be easier for me.
Okay.
So, and I'm going to exclude the Raiders because they should just hire Antonio Pierce, and I see him as the head coach because
Amen to that. And if that doesn't happen, I'll go on record with you being like they made another huge mistake.
okay, so I think the Chargers are the top spot,
Hmm.
and I think they're in a tier of their own because they have Justin Herbert. Then I think the next tier would be the Commanders and the Seahawks. I could flip those one or two. The Seahawks because they're close. Um, you have to work within Geno Smith and probably start to plan for your next quarterback. But they have a DK Metcalf, a Tyler Lockett, Ken Walker, pieces on defense. Like, they have a lot of nice pieces there. And then the Commanders are the quote unquote high. They have like the second most cap space, a top 5 pick. Like, they have the new owner that's going to want to win. Like, they're gonna make some flash. So you're going to have a lot of potential there. Not mean it's going to turn out to be good. We've seen a lot of teams blow through a lot of potential. And then after that, I would say, I'll throw the Falcons in there too, just because of all their offensive potential. Like if they get a really good offensive coach that doesn't throw to the third string tight end or use their 34-year-old running back in a 3 running back system, like that's why I was like, I think that the Falcons be in that tier, and then I think you have the Panthers, Patriots, and Titans in that next tier, just because like there's so many, like all of them are not in the best spots. Like, do you believe in Bryce Young if you're the Panthers? The Titans have an old roster at their, they're most likely not bringing Derrick Henry back. Their top wide receiver this past year was DeAndre Hopkins. He's still under contract, but they bring him back. Yeah, you have Will Levis, but we talked about him being, will that guy. And then the Patriots, who wants to follow Bill Belichick? Like,
Yep. No, I'm with you. I don't think my rankings are too far off. I think the Chargers are alone at the top because they're a team that you can go in there. They have pieces in place that you can make a run year one. So that might be the place for a legacy coach to go, for example, just because
I think
you
that's
bring in
Jim
the
Harbaugh.
experience, you coach him up. And he would follow that bill too. Along with
Michigan just
if
won the
Belichick gets
championship.
another job, if Carroll decides to go somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, for me,
Sorry,
like honestly, I don't know where Belichick goes.
I don't know if Belichick goes, but I know there's rumors of him being courted to teams. Like I've heard him connected with Atlanta trying to bring him in. Like I don't know if that's a good move, but I've heard that there's at least going to be options for him. It sounds like.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think because I would think at his age he would want to go to a contender. So he might it might
He
come
would be
down
a
between
candidate for the
Harbaugh and
Chargers
Belichick.
job.
Right.
Yeah.
I think they're going to go Harbaugh with after Michigan just won the national championship in college football. I think he'll finally make the jump back to the NFL.
For those who don't know, this is Jim Harbaugh, not John, the Baltimore head coach.
Ravens.
They're brothers. Yeah.
And then yeah, I mean, I just really can't find a spot. So like Bill Belichick might be the guy that takes a year off and comes back, doesn't jump right back into coaching, maybe kind of goes on like a half retirement, see what it's like.
Decides if he wants to come back.
For sure. Like
Yeah.
sees how that's going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody's talking Mike Vrabel to the Patriots, but I think Gerard Mayo, their defensive coordinator, is just as strong of a candidate for them as well if they want to go internal. And then there's some other interesting names. Like there's a lot of really good candidates, but like, would Pete Carroll go to the Falcons? Would Bill Belichick go to the Commanders? Or like, are they at the point where, I would rather have a team that kind of has something in place like the Chargers, or maybe they want to go to, a Tennessee that has a couple pieces potential. Like this is one of the could be, some people say, most stacked coaching carousels, but it also is like one of the most interesting ones to me of like who could go where. Like, will Eric Bieniemy finally get a job? I mean, the Commanders' offense was so hit or miss, but like I would love him in Atlanta, but we'll see if that. I would love to see how that one works out. Will the Raiders mess up? Will the Raiders go get Bill Belichick or a Jim Harbaugh and let Antonio Pierce become the defensive coordinator for the Giants? Like, there's so much what if and interest in this one. And I think, just like I've said, this season has been one of the most any given Sunday seasons. Like this coaching cycle seems so, like, you can almost convince me why everyone available won't go to that team or why everyone available will go to that team.
I want to throw like my tiers in here one more second, and then I'll throw my hot take out there before we jump out of the segment. So I said the Chargers at the top because they're the win now team. My next two appealing ones would be the teams who have a chance to build, being the Commanders, and I'm actually going to put the Patriots into that because of their draft positioning. And they are, I believe, a little bit of a younger team. I know their defense has a lot of really good young pieces, so it's going to be hard to follow Belichick, but I think those two teams are primed to have a young team that can start to be built up. The Panthers aren't in that category because they don't have a first-round pick because they put everything into Bryce Young. And then the teams that I'm looking at that I think could get a legacy coach and maybe like pull in someone like a Kirk Cousins, who is a impending free agent, would be the Seahawks, the Titans, and the Falcons. I think there's a chance that one of those three teams will bring in a coach. They'll say, I want a veteran quarterback to try to bring this roster up to speed faster. And they would go out there and try to get someone like a Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I think Kirk Cousins going back to Minnesota, coming off
I
the
personally
Achilles.
do too, but it's a possibility. I think those teams at least would have to do their homework if that's the idea they want to go about. And they all have middle tier first round picks, so they can't go out there and really like try to force their future star quarterback from the draft.
No, I gotcha. I think that makes a ton of sense. I'm really interested. Just this is so if the Raiders, this will be kind of like my hot take. If the Raiders don't keep Antonio Pierce, which I think is crazy, if they don't do that at this point, uh, I think they'll be the one that gets Jim Harbaugh, and I think he'll draft JJ McCarthy with his first pick to reunite him from Michigan. I mean, a lot of people have said that, so it's not that hot of a take. But I could definitely see that happening in Las Vegas if they go 2 for 2 and not hiring their interim head coach that played better, the team played for. And the players really love Pierce, so
It's true. I really think if they don't go with Pierce's mistake, but that's a possibility if they decide to go elsewhere. We're talking long term. I mean, we're going to keep you guys updated with these coaching vacancies as they start to get filled over the next few weeks. But Cody, do you want to talk about this week?
sure. I think that is a great idea. We should jump into a Super Wildcard Weekend preview.
Wildcard's 2 words, but I'm not going to really hit you for it anyway. Um, 6 games. Do they still call it Super Wildcard Weekend, or is that kind of come and gone? I'm really not sure.
No, it's Super Wildcard because there's games 3 days of the week.
Got it. Because they added the Monday game. That makes absolutely 0 sense. But that means there's 2 games on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, 1 on Monday. We'll do a little bit kind of like our traditional approach. We'll look at each game separately, and then we'll talk about winners as we go here. First game on the docket on Saturday, 4:30 East, is the Houston Texans and the Cleveland Browns. And how long can the Joe Flacco magic run keep going?
That is a great question. Also, wildcard can be both ways. In sports, it's typically 2 words. In computer programming, it's 1 word. So I'm just going to seem extra smart and that's why I put it as 1 word. But back to actually talking about this week. I hope this run continues at least 1 more week. And Joe Flacco's run's been great. I think I saw that he has more touchdown passes than like 3 teams all season long and tied with 2 other ones. Like, it's been an incredible run. But I don't want to sleep on what the transformation that the Houston Texans did. I want to take you all the way back to April, end of April, when they had the number 2 pick and they took CJ Stroud and then had the number 12 pick and used that to trade all the way back up to the number 3 to get Will Anderson, getting 2 cornerstones, hiring D'Amico Ryans. That team won the AFC South, and they get the home playoff game, so they're at home in Houston. Like that is, at the beginning of the season, if you listen to our prediction show, I guarantee you we all thought the Houston Texans were gonna have a top 5 show or a top 5 pick again this year.
Yeah, like we were like, oh, they made positive strides, but like, no, they're not going to compete. And
right. So for
that
them
ended
to
up being
get
one of
here,
the most competitive divisions in the NFL, actually. Not the most, but one of them.
yeah, it's also one of those competitive divisions, kind of like the NFC South. Like, it was competitive, but it doesn't mean it was the best.
There was at least teams with winning records there. Like
That's true.
2 or 3 of them finished with a winning record.
Yeah, I mean, we could have 2 teams if the Jaguars would have beat the Titans in Week 18. Like, there would have been 2 teams potentially from that division.
If the Jags won more than one of their last 6.
Right. Granted, they were dealing with injuries. But we're talking about this week, Houston Texans, Cleveland Browns. And I think the Texans, and I wanted to emphasize the run or the changes the Texans have made, because it's an incredible story. But I do ultimately think the Cleveland Browns get the victory here, whether it's storylines thing for me in next week, and we'll talk about our full-on before the playoff predictions. Once we get through all these games, we'll give you how we think the season's going to play out. But with that said, I think the Browns defense is just their front with mainly Myles Garrett, potential defensive player of the year, and Zadarius Smith, and all the guys they have. I know Denzel Ward got a little banged up in practice this week, which could cause some problems, but give me the Cleveland Browns in this one. But I think it'll be a great game to kick off Super Wildcard Weekend.
This is going to be the game that the casual fans who only really watch like the playoffs and the Super Bowl are going to be like, how the heck did the Browns and the Texans get here? Who are these people? And then they're going to be surprised to see how well both of these teams play. I don't think the Texans are quite there yet. They're the young team that probably is overperforming, and they're going to be back. And they still are doing this without Tank Dell for the second half of the season. Like, I think that kid's going to be an absolute stud and be a huge difference maker as the Texans keep trying to progress to go further into the playoffs and make their potential Super Bowl run. But I'm with you that I'm super bullish on the Browns. I'm picking the Browns in this matchup. And I want to ask you a quick question. Who do you think is a more complete team? The Cleveland Browns or the San Francisco 49ers?
Complete team?
A more complete full team. Because we always have been saying that the 49ers are the most complete team in the NFL.
Oh, it's
but
so
I want to
49ers.
throw an argument out there that the Browns could be, because they have been dealing with no quarterback all year, and they just consistently win games.
I mean, not having a quarterback doesn't, like, name one position group as a group that the Browns are better at than 49ers.
See, like, I have answering that question, but I'm sure if we went back and looked, they're probably very close on the defensive line. They don't have the names in the secondary, but their defense is playing just as well or better.
If you were going to say anyone, it'd be the secondary.
Offensive line, but I feel like the 49ers are 1-2 men deep on the offensive line, but their system covers so many things. Like, they are a very complete team, and I still think they probably are the most complete team. But the Browns, if you put another quarterback in the playoffs that's maybe not on the Steelers, on the Browns, I think that they have a chance to be a favorite to win the AFC. And I think they're that good of a full team.
I think I hear what you're saying. I think saying that they have a better complete team than the 49ers is a little crazy. You probably could ask me any other team and we could have maybe had a conversation. But I think you might have a point, but a reason they're in the playoffs is how well Joe Flacco has played the last couple weeks. Like, Joe Flacco helped carry this team to the playoffs. I know they had a really good season. But I don't know if any quarterback, maybe the playoff teams outside the Steelers, yes. But like, we were like, this team was finding ways to win with bad quarterback play in Deshaun Watson. So like, I don't know how hot Flacco is playing, I don't know which quarterback would make this team that much better. Right? Maybe you get one less interception or something like that, because Flacco will still throw a pick or two. But if you take, what we saw last year from Joe Flacco, or, in the years past, after the Ravens playoff run, maybe but he's been so hot of late, and maybe sitting him in week 18 will come back to bite them. And he'll be a little bit cold. But I think they've done them. I think Kevin Stefanski here, this will make you feel better. I think Kevin Stefanski deserves more recognition for Coach of the Year than he's getting as well.
That's a good way to put it too. Yes, he has done wonders with this team, and they are a solid team. I think, going and saying they're a more complete team than the 49ers is bold, but I wanted to throw something out there because I think that the Browns aren't getting the recognition that they deserve, and they are a dangerous team coming into this playoffs, because there's a chance they could beat everybody on the AFC side. Not saying they will, but they have a chance.
I don't remember the next matchup. I need you to help me out. And
the next matchup is the Saturday night game. Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Miami Dolphins, who had the horrible collapse against the Bills last week and now have to go up to a frigid Arrowhead Stadium on Peacock.
Yeah, so make sure you sign up for your free trial to enjoy this game.
Yeah,
No, but
right.
this one,
They're getting all the Swifties to sign up for Peacock for this game.
I'm so intrigued by this game. I want to see if the Chiefs finally turn it on. Right? Like, does Patrick Mahomes get in the playoffs and go scorched earth? Does Travis Kelce
Possible.
find his second gear and comes back to the Travis Kelce that we're accustomed to? Does Chris Jones become the best defensive player in all of the NFL like he does in the playoffs? Like, the Chiefs still have a ton of pieces, and I think playing at home, I think they'll get the win this week, especially with the amount of edge rushers the Dolphins have the last couple weeks. Like, they're
Yep.
signing guys off practice squads and off free agency to play this week because they've just lost so many pass rushers, and not being able to rush effectively against Patrick Mahomes does not sound like a good matchup. But I am really intrigued to see the Tyreek Hill return to Kansas City.
That is the storyline in this one. I don't think we mentioned that the storyline in game one was the Deshaun Watson trade game, even though Watson's not playing. There's still a storyline. But yeah, no, the Tyreek Hill returning to Kansas City. The biggest reason why I think the Chiefs are going to win this game is because if we've seen the Dolphins have a weakness, it's when they can't get up to full speed and they have a team that can out physical them. The Chiefs have been as good as they have been because their defense has been solid. And when you're playing in 0-degree temperatures, it's hard to play at 150 miles per hour like the Dolphins do. And they might just get out physical in this game. That's well within the realm of possibilities. And that's what I think the likely outcome is going to be.
Yeah, if you're playing DFS this week, I love Isaiah Pacheco.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you there. That is one of my favorite players in this week. And I'm kind of avoiding a lot of Dolphins. And there's a chance the Dolphins go out there and put up 35. And we're like, that's just what happens with the Dolphins. But I don't love their outlook between injuries, the weather, the matchup.
Yeah, I think it'll be a fun game. Um, it'll be cold. You'll see a lot of players' breath. Looking forward to the wide receiver shirtless uh, warming up because I feel like that's a trend every time we get a cold game. So we'll definitely see that. And yeah, I think the big thing for me is how do the Chiefs look? Because I think because of the injuries, the Dolphins are a fast team. It's going to be cold. Like, I think if Andy Reid sticks to the run game, they'll win this game. Like, I really do.
Mhm.
But will it give me confidence for them to go on the road next week and pull off an
Mahomes'
upset?
first road playoff game.
Correct. And but potentially, depending on how it plays out, we both picked Cleveland, so they'll most
Mhm.
likely they'll have to go to whoever wins in the 2-3 matchup. Like, unless they'll play Baltimore unless the Steelers win, but I kind of forget the Steelers are in the playoffs, and maybe that's my problem.
And maybe it will be a problem. We can move on to there. So we're on to the Sunday slate, 1:00 East. The Steelers traveling up north to the Buffalo Bills. And I think if you're looking at it straight, the Bills, who are on a tear right now, should be a clear favorite. But this is another game we're looking at weather, where there's a chance of a snowstorm, heavy winds, cold weather. The Steelers are the kind of team that, again, physical team that can maybe even thrive in a game like that, as opposed to, throw the Dolphins in that game. It's a major problem, for example. Like, it's going to make the gap tighter than it probably should be. And that's why you kind of have to just, keep an eye out on this one.
Yeah, I'm trying to look to see where the lines in this one. Yeah, the Bills are favored by 9.5. Like,
That might go down
that's
if the weather keeps looking like it's going to get worse, but I feel like that's where it should be, but it might not be. Like, I might take the Steelers plus 9.5 if the weather's going to be bad, thinking the Bills are still going to win, but the Steelers could keep it a lot closer.
yeah. I just unfortunately don't know how you pick the Steelers in this matchup. I mean, no
Mhm.
7th seed has won since the 7th seed started just 3 years ago, but no 7th seed has won. And in this matchup, I get what you're saying about weather. So, like, if it becomes a run fest, like maybe you favor Najee Harris over James Cook. But after what James Cook did to Dallas, like I feel like that kind of neutralizes that one. You have Jalen Warren as the backup compared to. Don't forget the Bills have playoff Lenny, like on top of Latavius.
They also rush with Josh Allen.
They rush with Josh Allen. I think if the Steelers are going to win, it's going to come down to Josh Allen. Josh Allen leads the NFL in total touchdowns, but also leads the league in turnovers. So, like, which if he throws 3 picks, okay, well maybe they keep this game. But like, the Steelers have a quarterback controversy in the playoffs. That's crazy. Like, are they going to start?
They're trying to ride Mason Rudolph's Christmas magic for 3 weeks now.
Yeah. So, like this game, like 9.5 to me, which I never should say this out loud because it never is, feels too close. Like I would take Bills in the points, and if and you might be like, well, you're just a big Bills fan. Like I didn't even have the Bills making the playoffs back.
You didn't. You're right. We should have went
I
back
said
and
they would
looked
Jess Smith.
We should have went back and looked at if we got our playoff predictions even close.
Nobody got our
from
playoff
preseason.
predictions right because all of us had the Jets making the playoffs.
Well, I know none of us got it right. We also didn't have the Texans in the playoffs. Let's be honest. We probably didn't have the Browns either. But I was curious who got the closest. Like I know Tyler and I had the Rams right.
Yeah, and I had the Packers right.
Yeah,
and I
true.
almost had the Colts right.
Anyway, we're off topic. The only reason I'm saying the Bills aren't going to cover in points is because I think if the weather's really bad, 14-9 is a possible score output. And then the Bills win. It probably doesn't look close most of the game, but the Steelers cover. Like that kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
I got you. And maybe too, like the Bills needed a special teams touchdown to beat the Dolphins last week.
Yep.
21-14. So like they weren't an offensive powerhouse against the Dolphins last week. So maybe the weather. So I think you've brought me a little bit down to earth. So I appreciate that as we work through this matchup. But I think that's all I got. If you want to move us on to the 4:00 one.
It's kind of your matchup to talk about. But anyway, just clarifying, we're picking the Bills to win. We're just saying don't know if the Bills are going to cover 9.5 points. The 4:00 game doesn't have to worry about weather as it's in a dome down in Dallas. The Dallas Cowboys hosting Cody's Green Bay Packers. And I think he's already said it. He sees a possibility where the Packers can win this game. And you also said how no 7 seed has won a playoff game since they went to 7 playoff teams on each side. So convince me why or why not to pick the Packers.
Okay, so I'm just going to throw some stats out at you. So the Cowboys, 8-0 at home this year. I've won 16 straight home games coming into this season.
2 straight. No, not 2 straight perfect seasons because they played 9 home games on the odd.
Correct. Year. They lost their first home game last year and haven't lost since.
Okay.
The Packers have never lost at AT&T Stadium. They are 5-0.
Ooh.
In the last 10 matchups between the Cowboys and the Packers are 9-1. They have played really well. So there is potential. So the Packers used to be like think about our lifetime, right? Just the playoff games we've seen. We're not even talking, Ice Bowl stuff and all that. We're talking the Dez Bryant did it catch, the Jared Cook on the sidelines, like then
he went to Jared that meme game, yeah.
Even if we don't talk playoffs, the Christian Watson breakout game last year, the Aaron Jones 4-touchdown game, like these teams, like the Packers have almost become a thorn in the side of the Cowboys. Now, a lot of that, especially in the playoffs, was with Mike McCarthy, which makes this game so interesting because Mike McCarthy is now facing the Packers. So I'm super excited for this game. The Cowboys are currently 7.5-point favorites, and for me, I would take the Packers plus the points. I don't even think the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are going to win the game as of right now. Like I do think the Packers have a legitimate shot. They're playing really good football right now, and we've seen time and time again about how teams come in hot. I mean, I almost went on record saying, and almost, so this is off the record. I'm not saying this. Please make sure this is clear and do not clip my next phrase. I almost said whoever wins this game is the NFC champion or the NFC represented in the Super Bowl. But I wasn't ready to go that far because I would
Because
sound
the
like
Packers win that game, you're gonna be like, oh man, is there a letdown now?
it exactly. And I didn't want to put that kind of pressure on Green Bay either. But this should be a super fun game. We don't know if Christian Watson is going to play. I'm leaning that he doesn't, which would kind of be a big loss. But the Packers have had so many young receivers step up. Packers are the youngest team since they've tracked that stat to ever make this playoffs. So just an impressive job there. Like this team was 2-5 at one point, found a way to make the playoffs. So again, Matt LaFleur not getting the credit he deserves in the playoffs. And the most exciting thing for this playoff game or not is Jordan Love has looked like he leads the league in most games with 3 touchdown passes and no turnovers. I believe the number is 20 total touchdowns to 1 interception over the last 9 games.
That's
Like
impressive.
he's been on a tear. Like he really has started to take the next step. And if the Cowboys are a little bit hung up on that, we've won barely any playoff games. We can't lose to the 7 seed. That's why I said earlier when we were talking about these coaches matchup and the potential of Mike McCarthy, like this game to me feels like it's going to be the hardest game for the Cowboys. Not saying any game is going to be easy in the playoffs. They're not. But like if they get this win, watch out. But I could see them losing just as much as I can see them winning. I think it's the closest coin flip despite the 7.5 point spread. Now
Intriguing
watch Dallas win by
storylines.
21 points.
Yeah, probably. That's probably exactly what's going to happen. No, but I was on the same mindset as you even before that. And I think the Cowboys are going to win. I'm picking the Cowboys. That's my on record pick. But the Packers, number one, the stat you didn't say, the youngest team in NFL history to make the playoffs. So already claps to them. And they're starting their new tenure without Aaron Rodgers on a very good step, regardless of what happens in this game. But they are a team that's going to surprise people. And then the casual fans who are like, oh, I heard Rodgers left, but the Packers still made it to the playoffs. They're going to be surprised to see. I think they're going to be surprised to see how well the Packers can hold up in their whole new regime and, era, I guess, of Packers football.
Yeah, and don't overlook, but Jordan Love was named Week 18 Nickelodeon's MVP. So he has that riding into the
Nice.
playoffs.
He joins the luxurious group of MVP winners that include names like Mitch Trubisky. Rams versus Lions, my personal favorite game of the weekend, and the storyline of the quarterback trade, the Matt Stafford, Jared Goff trade. Everyone seems to be talking about Stafford going back to Detroit. I've seen a lot of Detroit fans on social media being like, Stafford doesn't deserve any claps from us. He did us nothing. And I think that's unfair. I think Stafford poured his heart out for the Lions and they didn't do him any favors. But however, Lions fans got to get juiced up for this one. Let them do it. But I think Jared Goff is getting overlooked a little bit too, because Jared Goff said in the press conference this week how that trade just hasn't been able to leave him. He now is sitting at a home game against his former team. He won a division, the Rams didn't. I don't know if the spread on this one is, but I'm pretty sure they're favored also. Like, Goff is in a driver's seat out there to show the Rams and their fans that even though they got their Super Bowl, Goff is here to stay, and he could be a better long-term option for a franchise.
Yeah, this one is a great. We talked about this right before we started recording. Maybe you could flip a Monday night game and a game or something like that. But in the 4 o'clock into the 8 o'clock is like the best 2 prime spot matchups, the best matchups in my opinion. And I think the schedule makers nailed the slate of putting the best games in front of the most eyeballs. And this Lions team is so intriguing for me. They didn't bench their starters last week. Now it might have cost them Sam Laporta, which would be a big loss if you can't go. They're hoping he can get back. Wasn't as bad as it looked as it happened live, but they're hoping they get him back.
Similar injury to the Travis Kelce injury earlier this year, just worth noting. And Kelce did not miss time, but he was expected to. So there's a chance.
I thought Kelce missed 2 games.
I didn't think he missed any time.
I'm pretty sure Kelce missed 2 games to start
I'll look it
after
up.
they played the Lions. So George's gonna look that up. The spread is Lions favored by 3. So I do agree. Like, I do think the Lions are being a little bit overlooked. I think this is the most popular upset pick, probably because of the storylines. So the Lions might have a little bit of the underdog mentality. And for me, the thing that comes down to is everything we love about Dan Campbell is also the reason why it might come in this big game. Does he go for a fourth punt in his own, a fourth down fake punt in his own side of the field that ends up costing them? Like, do they have a botch call on a, you know, 2-point conversion that puts them back to the 7? They should kick a field goal. Like, is there something like that? Does Jared Goff throw a bad interception? This game should be exciting right down to the wire, and both teams don't have the best kicker. The Lions probably have the better of the two, but should be a fun game all at once. But what did you find out?
1 week. He missed week 1.
He missed week 1. He didn't play in the
against the
opener.
Lions.
Gotcha.
I mean,
Yeah,
not that the Chiefs are in the match against the Lions, but yeah, he missed 1 week. So then if you say if it is a similar injury, you would expect Laporta back in the divisional round if the Lions get past the Rams, which I'm going to go ahead and make my pick and say they don't. I was hyping up Jared Goff and the Rams, but for whatever reason, I've felt like ever since that Rams-Ravens game that the Rams did end up losing on a punt return in overtime. They have looked like one of the more complete and on fire teams in the NFC. I even went out 2 weeks ago and tried to tell you that they were the second or third best team in the NFC right now. And they actually did have a chance to rest their starters. Don't know if that's going to hurt them or not, but I mean, they are one of the more surprising teams. They only are in this position because the 49ers are as good as they are. And it sucks they have to go on the road because of that, but they are better than the 6th best team in the NFC by far.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if by far, by moving up 2 spots, maybe 1 spot is by far, but we'll let that comment slide. I get what you're saying. But you mentioned them resting the starters. They got to play the 49ers last week. They won, which is how they
They
were
won
able to
resting
keep
starters, yeah.
Now the 49ers are also resting starters, but they went for the 2-point conversion to win the game before giving if I remember correctly, and that's how they won 22-21. So I think just that winning momentum, it was good to see Carson Wentz back out there. That was a fun time, being the second pick behind Jared Goff. Now
Is it
playing
full
for the
circle for
Rams.
him because he tore his ACL against the Rams, had never looked the same since that, and now won a game for the Rams?
Probably. Could be. But I think we both mentioned, I'm picking the Rams to win as 2. I think the Rams have been playing really well as of late. But that doesn't mean I don't think the Lions can win it all. This isn't like the Buffalo Pittsburgh one. Both these teams probably will walk, hopefully, barring the officials, we will walk away from this game saying neither one of those teams deserved to lose. Unfortunately, one had to.
That's how I hope this game goes, because both franchises have put themselves in a position to be the hero per sense in the NFC. If you're one of those people that roots for the underdog, I don't want to say the Rams are an underdog coming a few years after Super Bowl, but with how their arc has been and they're on the way back up, the Lions haven't had success as a franchise. They look like they're starting to get it together. Like, these are the two save us from the top seeds teams in the NFC right now. So whatever one of these does win are probably going to be a rooting favorite going forward in the NFC.
I can see that. One more game. It's your Eagles. Monday Night Football. Can't stand the Monday Night playoff game, but we'll talk about it still. Take it away.
Might be a good thing with the extra day for the Eagles because A.J. Brown didn't practice Thursday. He was dealing with the knee tweak that they played their starters for a quarter in an absolute disaster last week. Devontae Smith should be back. He is practicing in full, if I'm not mistaken. They also are getting back Darius Slay. That's a big deal. He hasn't played for, I think it was a month now. I don't know if any of that does matter. I have a hard time picking this game because I think the question's not who's the better team. It's were the Eagles coasting? And now it's the playoffs. Are they going to pull the Patrick Mahomes set scorched earth, turn it all on, be the world beater like they were last year? Or are they really in shambles because I don't know, maybe something happened in the locker room. Maybe the coaching was figured out because once they got a couple weeks on tape and it's not a good coaching staff, like there's a lot of questions that could make it a problem for them. And I think the answer to the have they been coasting or is it an actual problem is the answer on if the Eagles are going to win this game and go forward. I'm picking them because I think they ended up with the easiest matchup in the NFC, but not confidently.
Yeah, I'm taking the Eagles in this one as well. And I'm glad you brought up coaching because that's been such a big topic. But I think we often forget when a team does very good and starts to lose players. Like the Eagles lost their offensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator, and some other staff members that followed those guys this offseason.
Yep.
And so this was a whole new thing, a work in progress. And they've been trying. I mean, they made Matt Patricia the defensive play caller just a couple weeks ago. It hasn't worked out particularly well, but I mean, that's what they're riding with. And I think coaching is a big aspect of it. But I like the Eagles in this one. I'm not saying that they're going to go on another run to the Super Bowl unless something really changes. But I think the Eagles get a victory, and on Tuesday, the Eagles' social media team will drop the speech that Jason Kelsey gives on Saturday night, or I guess Sunday night, and this one that helps get his team rallied and ready to go for a Monday night victory.
That we'll wait and see on that one. I'm kind of glad as an Eagles fan they play last also because they're not going to ruin my entire weekend by having to see another clown show on the field before I get to see the other playoff games. But it's been that bad. Anyway, Cody, we made our picks for this weekend. I think now we have to lay out the rest of our playoff bracket and see if we can even get close. So, do you want to go first and at least tell us your championship game matchups?
All right, so I will recap. So in round one, I picked the Browns, the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Rams, which gives my divisional matchups in the AFC: Ravens versus Browns in the Flacco Bowl, Bills and Chiefs in the bowl or the 13-second bowl. And then on the NFC side, it's divisional matchups again: Rams, 49ers, Cowboys, Eagles, the week of third time's a charm. And do you want me to stop there? You want me to go into who makes the championship?
You can go to the championship and then I'll lay mine out.
All right, cool. So I have the Cowboys beating the Eagles, and I have the 49ers beating the Rams. So the NFC is 49ers, Cowboys. And then I have Ravens beating the Browns, as much as I want to pick Cleveland to upset that one, and Buffalo beating Kansas City.
Well, all right. So recapping my divisional round matchups, I have the Ravens versus the Browns and the Bills versus the Chiefs. So I have Browns, Bills, and Chiefs winning this week on the AFC side. NFC side, I have 49ers, Rams, and Cowboys, Eagles. So Rams, Cowboys, and Eagles winning on the NFC side. So then going to the championship on the AFC, I'm along with Cody having Ravens versus Bills. I think that Bills Chiefs game is very intriguing for storylines. If the Chiefs do move on over the Dolphins, it's going to be the Mahomes is going to do it again, and I think Josh Allen's going to get his actual win he's been looking for over Mahomes. And then NFC side, I have 49ers versus Cowboys. So 49ers beating their division rival in the Rams, Cowboys beating their division rival in the Eagles.
So pretty similar, just a slight change with one differential in the first round. And then my championship matchup. So I Ravens, Bills on the AFC side. I went with Baltimore in this one. And then on the NFC side, it's 49ers, Cowboys. And I know in week 5, the 49ers dominated the Dallas Cowboys. And I know the NFL logo is Super Bowl logo for this year is red and purple. So I think this game's gonna be incredibly close, and every part of me wants to pick the Cowboys, but I will end up picking the 49ers to win the game But I will say, I get this will actually spoil my championship winner, but it doesn't matter. If the 49ers and Cowboys make the championship, I think either of those teams win the Super Bowl. So I had the 49ers winning this one. So I think it's an NFC Super Bowl victory.
All right. So we had the same championship game matchup. So Ravens, Bills, I'm agreeing with you and going with the Ravens. And then 49ers, Cowboys. I also had to think pretty hard about this one, but I kind of feel like the Cowboys are going to be good at home in the playoffs, and then that road problem is going to keep showing. It's going to be a lot closer than it was earlier in the year, but I have the 49ers moving on. And then I just couldn't quite pick the 49ers to beat the Ravens after seeing how that went earlier this year. I think it's going to be a lot closer again, but I have the Ravens beating the 49ers.
I don't blame you. I just don't think Brock Purdy's going to throw 5 interceptions or whatever that was in that game.
No, I don't think so either. But you mean the Ravens still won handedly? You could have Brock Purdy throwing 1 interception and the Ravens still win a lot closer.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong, but I think that like the 49ers, and I get that the Ravens, I think their defense is really good. I think the 49ers defense is good. I think would be the best 2 teams on the season. In all honesty, hence is why we picked them. It'll be cool in my storylines bracket that this is a rematch of the Harbaugh Bowl. With Harbaugh potentially returning to the NFL. I think that'd be a fun twist once. And I think the 49ers just get the edge on this one. It's hard to beat the same team twice in the same season. They always say that about divisional matchups. So I think it would be a great Super Bowl, but I would give the edge to the 49ers in that game in Las Vegas. Just hopefully the lights stay on.
I sure hope so with that multi-billion-dollar stadium. All right, so we have one more segment to go. Unfortunately, NFL discontinued playoff challenge. So that's going to be something we're going to change. But you want to play some more DFS, Cody? So we're going to throw a link in the description of this video or podcast, however you are watching or listening to us, and we'll throw it on our social media so you can come join with us to play some daily fantasy this week. We're putting together a pool with every single game for the weekend. So we got the full 6-game slate. We're going to announce my, Cody, and Tyler's lineups like we did last week. We'll let you guys vote on who you think is going to win and then jump in and see if you can beat us as well. So you want to do this similar to last week, Cody? You announce yours and Tyler's, and then I'll throw mine in there.
Sure, but I have to figure out where my lineup. There we go.
I think I normally went first, so I'll continue to go first to give you another second to catch your breath. We'll start at the top with quarterbacks. Last week, I paid up for the quarterback, and I went with Jalen Hurts and ended up playing a quarter and broke his finger, and it was a whole entire deal. I went to pay down for a quarterback this week because I was intrigued to see that one of the lower budget quarterbacks is somebody I think is going to be in a shootout. Jared Goff for 6,200.
All righty. So I think a lot of us did the same thing. I went a little bit more, I think right above Jared Goff in that same matchup. And I took Matthew Stafford for 6,500. And then Tyler took the Rook, CJ Stroud, for 6,800. So he spent the most on all the quarterbacks. And Stroud versus that Cleveland defense. That's a bold one, but we've seen Stroud have some big games in that. So don't hate that one at all.
I think he's on the CJ Stroud train. He probably has the Texans moving on. We'll throw his playoff predictions onto our social media as well, so you guys can all see it. Running back 1. I really like Aaron Jones this week. Hoping he goes. I'll make an adjustment if for some reason he doesn't. But 6,300 for Aaron Jones as my RB1.
I really like that. I tried to do everything I could to get Aaron Jones in my lineup. I still might, I can change it, but as of right now, my RB1 is the guy I said is one of my favorite at 6,400. That is Isaiah Pacheco of the Kansas City Chiefs. And then running back 1 for Tyler is DeAndre Swift of the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
We didn't mention it. There's a chance of a thunderstorm and some rain coming through there, and the Eagles probably have to run the ball if they're going to actually succeed. So I don't hate that
in the rain again.
They've played in the rain, it seems like 3/4 of their matchups this year, honestly. I
That
don't
was
understand.
the again was very sarcastic.
Oh, 100%. Um, my RB2 is actually the same as Cody. I'm going Isaiah Pacheco at 6,400 as my RB2. So I spent up on the running back, 63 and 6,400. So I got Aaron Jones and Isaiah Pacheco.
And I have for mine, I had to spend a little bit less. At 5,700, I went with Devin Singletary. He's been hot as of late. A little bit of a budget guy, but could still. I know it's the Browns defense, but they've been a little bit more susceptible against the run, so I went with him. And then Tyler's RB2 is Jalen Warren versus the Buffalo Bills.
Don't hate that if the weather kind of induces more to the run, and it seems like while Najee's kind of like still taking that over, Jalen Warren has his chances. So don't hate that. This is my budget saver. Cheapest guy in my lineup besides my defense. Cody might know a little bit about him. Bo Melton, wide receiver for Green Bay.
Wow, Bo Melton. I love it.
3,300. 3,300.
It's the cost of my tight end. So
I figured, I mean, we don't know what the status is with Christian Watson. And even yet, he's been not starting and then getting a lot of snaps and being effective. So I'm just hoping it continues.
Right. So I'll go with my next guy because it's funny. Me, you, and Tyler, we all have a Packers wide receiver in our lineup, but they're all different.
Nice. Okay.
So I have Jaden Reed at 5,700.
Okay.
And then Tyler has Dontavian Wicks at 4,800. So you definitely got the budget version of these guys. But if you're saving that much money at the wide receiver position, tell me your next guy is like CeeDee Lamb.
I'll go to my top wide receiver budget wise. I paid up for the fantasy playoff MVP and Amon-Ra St. Brown to get with the stack with Jared Goff at 8,000.
So I too have Amon-Ra St. Brown at 8,000 as well. And then follow that up with Tyler, who does in fact have CeeDee Lamb, the highest paid wide receiver in DFS this week at $9,000.
9,000. That is a steep budget, but CeeDee Lamb is wide receiver 1 on the year right now. So, and then I could pen up a little bit more again because I pent a whole 3,300 on Bo Melton, and I added the best wide receiver 2 in the playoffs, maybe Puka Nacua, 7,200.
So I told you 3,300 was the price of my tight end because I too have Puka Nacua from my stack with Matthew Stafford.
Okay.
So me and you, a lot of points in that Lions-Rams game. And then Tyler's third wide receiver is Josh Reynolds for 3,800 in that same
He's
game.
sticking with the same game too. We're all thinking Lions-Rams is going to be a shootout is what I'm hearing.
Correct.
So I paid up on tight end, and I picked who is maybe arguably the tight end one right now, led by superstar quarterback Joe Flacco, David Njoku, 5,600.
Yeah, I saw David Njoku. I wanted to get him, but I liked the value of getting Nacua and Brown more. So I had to go with tight end Tucker Kraft for 3,300. It is a little bit scary. Luke Musgrave, he came back from his lacerated kidney last week. He only had one catch, but they said he was trying to get him more back into game shape and he'll be a little bit more let loose. So he could see some limited opportunities this week that we're accustomed to. But I still went ahead with Tucker Kraft, and Tyler followed suit after paying $9,000 for CeeDee Lamb, and he went Tucker Kraft as well.
I mean, you guys are playing for the couple of catches at tight end. I kind of took the shot at the stud tight end. Oh, what do you got?
I somehow have two apps showing me my lineup. No, I have Tucker Kraft. Tyler has Dallas Goedert at 4,800.
Got it. So he spent a little bit more money at tight end. And he's kind of banking on an Eagles comeback between Swift and Goddard. I hope he's right. Flex position. Now you see, I had a lot of high value guys through my lineup so far. So I had to throw one more budget guy in my flex. And I stuck with Cleveland, and I went with Elijah Moore for 4,000.
Okay, I also have a budget guy in my flex. And I was kind of surprised on how cheap he was at 3,600. But that is DeMarcus Robinson, the wide receiver for the Los Angeles Rams. So another potential flex guy. He had a really good, fantasy. I think he had 10 points every week except last week. Still had because of the no Carson Wentz, but he played. So give me Demarcus Robinson in my flex. And then you talked about a comeback. Tyler keeps that trend continuing, taking Devonta Smith at 6,700 in his flex.
Banking on that Monday night comeback in the points too. Hey, it's not a bad pick. I think the Eagles missed Devonta Smith more than people thought they would too. So we'll see how that works out. He might even be wide receiver 1 if AJ Brown can't make it back from the knee injury. And then my defense, I had 3,000 left to spare. I left $100 in the bank, put 2,900 on the Kansas City Chiefs defense against Miami.
Interesting. I spent the most of my defense at 3,500 and took Buffalo against Pittsburgh. And then Tyler, to wrap up, had 3,000 on his defense, has no money remaining, and he took the Houston Texans over the Cleveland Browns, or against the Cleveland Browns, not over. So
I had too many people on the Browns for me to do that. That's why I left 100 in the bank.
Yeah, I think I have 100 left in mine. I can look real quick, even though I just closed the app. I do have 100 left in mine as well, but I'll probably ride that and look for a back-to-back win in DFS.
You did barely pull it out last week, and I think that your lineup was very liked or hated. There was no in between on our social media voting. It was like anybody but Cody, or Cody's got it, no problem. Like it was one way or the other. There was no
so everyone out there that said anybody but Cody, you're wrong.
We'll let TikTok know, and we'll see if anyone comes back and picks on you again this week.
Bring it on. I'd love to hear your results, or who you think might win, who's going to lose, all that fun stuff. But I think that's my cue to hit this button, because we are getting ready to wrap up this episode of the podcast. As always, at the Couch GMs Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. If you want to get involved in the DFS, remember the link is in the description and on our social medias. I'm Cody Roadcap. That's George Kerth. Enjoy Super Wildcard Weekend, and we'll talk to you all next week.